I hope this video is a little bit late from what it's supposed to be. This is going to be talking about 3 builds for Lord Arthur. The important thing to understand with Lord Arthur, first off, is that Arthur is kind of your bridge character between tanks and warriors. Between warriors and leaders, sorry. If you want to play a warrior, and you want bonus melee damage, you like the bonus melee damage, but you don't like the penalty to the ranged weapons, you're going to kind of play Arthur. So the reason for that, in my opinion, is because of how his stats work. So let's explain his base kit. He's a very complicated character to explain as to what it does, because reading his information doesn't necessarily make it seem all that important. The first thing I want to mention before we begin is Arthur currently is bugged and is providing, both of his auras are providing ranged benefits in addition to melee benefits. This is unintended and it's supposed to be patched out, therefore I'm not going to be discussing builds trying to use that bug and use that exploit to your advantage. You shouldn't really be like spamming Arthur just because he's providing a 30% range weapon bonus. So let's explain a little bit. At level 1, you have a weapon bonus that gives you and teammates in your aura 30% bonus damage on heavy melee attacks, and at level 10, this effect is now applied on light attacks as well. So essentially at level 10, you buff all melee damage by 30%. In my opinion, you kind of need to get Arthur up to 10 as quickly as possible to get the value out of that. At level 1, he's really only benefiting Scotty's and support Ashes, because they're primarily using their heavies. In addition to this, at level 1, as part of Weapon Master heavy attacks, you start the match with the sword, which is one of the premium melee weapons in the game. It is a top 3, top 4 melee weapon. It's top 5, easy. You can't put it out of the top 5. In my opinion, it's top 3, but you can't put it outside the top 5. Now, the Lord's Wrath has a line of dialogue that says, if Lord Arthur has a sword, he inflicts extra damage. What that means is that he has a weapon mastery. It's not properly explained, but that essentially he starts with a sword mastery. So, by default, he has technically an active ability, a leader aura, spawns with a weapon that he has a mastery with. So he is a very good beginning character. He's a very powerful character at level 1. At level 10, he becomes kind of the full-fledged character. His level 25 is not great. What the Lord's Wrath does, it is also currently bugged. It doesn't reduce fear like it's supposed to. It's supposed to reduce your fear levels for you and nearby teammates. It lasts 15 seconds, and it gives an additional 20% melee damage. So if you're a level 10 Arthur, you are dealing 50% bonus melee damage for you and nearby teammates that are in your aura. Lord's Wrath has the exact same aura radius as well. They nerfed it from 30% to 20%. Now, this means he's a little bit squishier than a warrior, but he doesn't have the range damage penalty that warriors have. He just doesn't have as strong of a buff. He's only buffing 30% as opposed to 50%, and he has 300 less health, but he does more ranged weapon damage. Level 25 is not that impressive. Feel the Fire. Whenever you perform a finisher while the Lord's Wrath is active, the ability lasts 3 seconds longer. This basically is so that if you perform a finisher while you're in the Lord's Wrath, your extra duration is so that way there you don't burn all of your time up in that with the finisher. It's very common for Arthur. For example, if you activate the Lord's Wrath, the demon tries to focus you, and you swing. Normally, if you're not level 25, you're just going to keep swinging, because you're not going to get a lot of value out of using a finisher, because now your damage bonus goes away. This makes it so that you can perform a finisher, and you'll still have Lord's Wrath active at the end of the finisher, so you can potentially swing, get another finisher. This, in my opinion, is better for teammates than it is for you, It's very similar to the ability that Leader Ash has as his level 25 skill. When you perform a finisher or dismember an enemy, it grants 100% bonus aura effects to your character. I meant to take that point off. Probably put it here. I'll explain that, change another video. Alright, so explaining that Arthur is basically a baby warrior. He's basically a warrior with a little bit less health and a little bit more gun damage. That's the best way I can explain him. He has some benefits involving him being a leader. He does have a higher fear resist. That's just a passive. It's not like something that Leader Ash benefits from. So this is the core tree that you're going to level Arthur up like every other support. You're going to put your first 4 points into Great Influence so that you buff the radius of your active skill. You're going to want to put 1 point into Artful Dodger because of some of the stamina numbers that we've come up with. You want to put 1 point in. You don't necessarily want to put 2 points in because you'll get an extra dodge by putting 1 point into Artful Dodger if you point and your pink F tree. But if you have 2 points into Artful Dodger, it doesn't give you any other benefit. So you might just want to put 1 point here. 3 points into Industrial Strength to give you a bit more health. This will bring you closer to a warrior starting threshold, but you're still not coming anywhere near it. 2 points into Deep Pockets Ammo. I've seen some people say that Arthur doesn't really need to carry the extra ammo because he's a melee-focused character. You just want the 1 point to access the rest of the tree. In my opinion, you do want the 2 points into Deep Pockets Ammo because the extra ammo doesn't just benefit you, it benefits your team. And 1 point in I can still help. So that way there, your aura now persists if you are bleeding out or are a soul, so your soul gets picked up. So essentially these are your first 11 points that you're going to be playing as Arthur. I recommend obviously your first 4 points go to Great Influence. Point number 5 go to Artful Dodger. Then your next 3 points go to Industrial Strength. Then you can put your remaining 3 points over in this direction. Mostly because you want the stamina cost reduction so you get the extra dodge, and then the extra health is more helpful for staying alive. So this is the core tree that every leader has. Now, this is where we start to create the builds for Arthur. Arthur has 3 primary builds. You have a full melee build, you have a melee and range build that makes you into really good damage dealer, and then you have more of an objective melee build. You're going to be building melee no matter what. So, Arthur, in my opinion, has a minimum 1 in Seeing Stars and 4 in Devastating Force. And the 9 points is how you then build. So if you are an Arthur player, this is your absolute minimum build right here. So about level 16. Anything after that is yours to play around with. So this is where the 3 builds go. The 1 point in the balance bar is just to get access to Devastating Force. And Devastating Force just gives you a bonus 15% melee damage. Essentially, this increases the benefit of your aura for yourself. So you deal 45% bonus melee, you deal to both heavy and light attacks. Your team's going to deal 30, you deal 45. This makes Arthur, combining the fact that he starts with a sword and has a sword mastery, this makes him one of the strongest early game characters because he can take his common sword the whole length of the game. Unfortunately, with Arthur, you're not going to be dropping your common sword unless you find an upgraded rarity. Once you make your build like this, your common sword is going to deal more damage than legendaries and purples of other weapons. So, the first build I would talk about is going to be a hybrid. This is going to be a ranged weapon damage, melee weapon damage build. 1 point into stopping power, 4 points into hollow points. You have a remaining 4 points you can put into that you can use to go between a couple of different things. In my personal opinion, I would put 1 point into Echoes of an Aura and 3 points into the Last Word. So, Echoes of an Aura makes it so that teammates retain the effects of your aura after they leave its radius, and this effect stacks. So basically, if you have a teammate that's not right next to you, they're kind of at the edge of your aura, they can kind of go in and out of that aura and still get the effect semi-permanently. The 1 point into stopping power is just a cursory point to get access to hollow points. The 4 points into hollow points buffs your ranged weapon damage as well, so you're dealing 25% bonus ranged weapon damage. This does give you a much more firepower than a normal warrior would, but it's still way less than what a hunter would get. What this does do is it does make you the second most capable person on the team for using a gun. So an Arthur with a pistol can be a very good option for depossessing teammates because you can kind of spam it out quickly, and the bonus damage is nice. I don't think you should buff Wig Splitter that much because you only have 3 points to put in, not 4 points. If you had 4 points to get to the 25% bonus headshot damage, that's where I'd put the remaining 4 points. In this situation, the last word is a better option. For the last hit of your combo will deal 50% bonus damage. This is incredible on a character with a good melee weapon that buffs their own damage. Not to mention the fact you're not always going to be going for finishers as Arthur. If you're fighting a possessed unit or a boss, the last word's damage bonus there is relatively significant in that situation. The next one is more of a leader melee build. You have 1 point into Echoes of an Aura to get access to Fast Forward, which you put your 4 points into. And then you're going to have 1 point into Cardio and 3 points into Arcane Knowledge. If you wanted a max Arcane Knowledge, you could take a point out of something else. You could take a point out of Deep Pockets, for example, to get access to Arcane Knowledge, but I wouldn't recommend that. The way this build works, this is similar to my build for Leader Ash, the one I primarily run. This reduces the duration timer for objective events by 15%, and this gives you the ability to detect objects 50% away. So you get an extra 13 meters where you can, or 13 yards that you can detect the pages from. This is a lot more of an early game Arthur build that's focused around using your sword strictly, avoiding the guns until later in the game, even if the demon player jumps you, and just, I'm going to find the pages, I'm going to pick them up, or the map pieces, I'm going to pick them up, and we're going to go get an objective done, and hopefully the demon ignores us. It's not a particularly viable strategy on him, in my opinion. I think he works better as a combat leader, and that brings me to my final build for him, the build that I play on him. 1 point for Echoes of an Aura. Max the last word. I have 5 points remaining that I can put pretty much wherever I want to put on him. Oh wow, I do have 5 points remaining. Usually, I'm going to put those 2 points into Balance Bar, because increasing Balance Bar damage on him is quite significant. Now, I noticed on the previous two videos, I forgot I didn't have Balance Bar maxed, but I normally automatically max this out. But on a melee-focused Arthur, you're primarily going to want to max this out. This gives you 25% Balance Bar damage, and this gives you the massive bonus from the last word. Your remaining 3-point options aren't particularly great. I don't want to run Fast Forward here unless I can get it up to 15%. I don't want to run Cardio outside of a filler point. I don't want to run Deep Pockets Matchsticks because you don't need more than 3. I don't want to run Reinforced Amulet because that's not effective on him. I could put 1 into this and then start building Light Therapy. That's not particularly effective. I could do another point here to get access to Fear No Evil. That's not particularly effective. I could put 1 point into Stopping Power and then 2 points into Hollow Points, but a 10% damage buff is not worth it in my opinion. I could put 2 points into Stopping Power and 1 point something else. Again, not worth it. Usually I just dump my remaining points into Echoes of an Aura. It might not make the most sense to have Echoes of an Aura maxed out, but I personally prefer it. It basically means that as long as I'm near a teammate, they're going to have a permanent 30% bonus melee. So this is my recommended build on Arthur. One thing that I do want to mention in here is because of some of the stamina number changes, some builds have changed On the leaders, I've pretty much taken that point out of Artful Dodger and put it into something else. Because you're not getting as much value out of the extra point from Artful Dodger. Same thing on the Warriors. The Warriors do not get much... I shouldn't pick this. I should have picked this one. The Warriors don't get as much value out of Artful Dodger because they don't get an extra stamina reduction from the 35% that they do from the 15%. Now, the difference there is relatively significant in that if you let your stamina recharge a little bit, you can get that dodge sooner, but Warriors have so many better options on the table that they can build into, that the extra 2 points there, I would move those. Supports have the exact same stamina that leaders do, so you can take that extra point out of Artful Dodger here as well and put it into something else. I wanted to mention that for some of the previous build videos that I did. From the looks of it right now, either Scotty or Cheryl is probably going to be the next build guide video, and I do have another video that's planned that's a bit more controversial after this, so stay tuned.